Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Wednesday, the 14th of May. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I thought we'd kind of finish up rehashing flat rate versus hourly rate with a couple questions like you, Randy. And we'll talk about trying to get into your rhythm because it is a rhythm. And it all depends upon how you approach it to get the work in and out. So hang with us. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. So let's finish up with the flat rate versus hourly rate talk that we had yesterday. And let me bring up a few other points that I forgot. And that is if you have a flat rate shop on your mechanics, if they don't do it right and it comes back in for a redo, most shops, it's on the mechanic. Not on the shop. It's on the mechanic to redo it for free. And why do they have that in most shops? It's to keep that mechanic from just pushing stuff through fast to collect money. And let me tell you, most mechanics out there do take pride in what they do. And most mechanics out there nowadays are frustrated, the older ones are, because what they see as in their vision of what is a mechanic isn't a mechanic anymore, right? Because in their day and age, in my day and age, I'm getting older, you had to diagnose the whole engine, listening, trying different things. But now, we used to work on our own vehicles. And unless you have, high-tech computer equipment and the software to deal with each model, you're kind of screwed, aren't you? You can buy the tablets, the QR readers or whatever they are that plug into your truck or car and will give you faults. But Chevy makes a program, Dodge makes a program, and then within those programs there's breakdowns of certain trucks, certain cars. You see where I'm going with this? They're not all made the same. If they were, probably more mechanics could work on them. But it's like my truck. It's a 2021. It's had so many recalls that I don't even want to go into it, but most of them are software updates that it does when I shut my truck off. But you're going to have quirks, and it's not so much having the quirk, it's not having the ability to fix it. And case in point, as I explained yesterday, was on the brake system on my truck, parking brake. It's giving me a parking brake fault code. And my son said he put it on the computer here a month ago. And it said that the right passenger, rear right passenger parking brake unit was faulty. So Claude took it off and he put power to both sides and it engaged and disengaged. So it's like, well, this is working. So it started making this dinging noise out of the blue here 2 days ago. It drives you crazy. I had to have Claude drive me to cardiac rehab in his truck because they would have had to put me in a psych center somewhere if I listened to that dinging for 120 or an hour and 20 minutes each direction to rehab. But he's like, no, Dad, you have to put it on the computer and reset the system once the new. He said there's still a fault code in there somewhere. And so I said, what does it cost for another friggin' brake thing? And he said that they're right around $170, 250 install. I said, do it. The dinging is worth $250 to get rid of it. I was even going to take wire cutters and start cutting alarms so I didn't have to listen to the freaking thing. But that's what old school mechanics did, was they listened, they knew a certain set of things to go through. Not anymore. And it's gotten so complex that thank goodness for AI, right? Because AI is going to be doing a lot of the checks. And it made me laugh the other day because I have Android in my truck, my phone and stuff that I have. And it listens when it's connected. And I said, well, I was saying something to Claude, about, he said, well, how did you find that information out? I said, well, I Googled it. And through the truck speakers, it says, how may I help you? Do you want Google? Scared to live it bejesus out of Claude. Claude's like, is that truck listening to us? I said, yes, it's listening to every word and it's storing it somewhere. So that at any time, if you say you didn't say it, I can pull it back up. Well, that freaked him out. It doesn't store it anywhere that I know of. Even if it did, I wouldn't know how to access it. But let's get back to the rhythm. You have to have a rhythm in the shop. You have to have a kind of a procedural thing in the shop. And if you're a one-man band, it's harder. It's a lot harder because you're trying to tear stuff apart. You're trying to decide what do I need for parts. And then you're trying to order them. And when you do that, you're taking up a couple hours just in diagnosing and ordering. And that's not the actual working on the lawnmower to get it fixed. But if we build for every hour, whether it be doing parts lookups and stuff like that, the bill would be crazy. So what we end up doing is we bill just by the amount of time that Claude or I are working on a unit. And a lot of times we're both at it. So, it's we're knocking stuff out. But my main job is to get the parts ordered and coming as quickly as possible and billing. But on top of that, I'm also working on handhelds, decks. Like yesterday, I was working on putting all new spindles, pulleys, everything onto a Husqvarna deck that was in good shape, but everything else was shot. And the problem is they have grease fittings there for a reason. And I would say probably 95% of my customers, even though there's grease fittings on the top of the 3 spindles on a 48 to 54 inch deck, the only time they get grease is in the spring of the year after I pump 6 to 8 pumps of grease into them. And if their yard is very big, it's going to start breaking those bearings down. They're sealed bearings, but the grease in the spindles themselves, still enough will release to get into those. They're not completely sealed. There's a big debate out there. If they're a sealed bearing, then you can't get grease in them from outside. Yeah, you can. And you do. But you have to have a system so that when you get done with one, while you're waiting for parts, you can jump on to the next one. And I know come the spring of the year, roughly, when I get ready to do, which I usually do over the winter months, is I'll bring in a case of each oil filter if I don't have it here in stock. There's certain particular air filters that I know we sell a lot of. I bring in the big packs of plugs. I know there's 2 separate plugs that fit 95% of the machines. Fuel filters, we use the same filter. We've had really good luck with this filter on all of them. Not just a few here or there, all of them. So I stock up on those. I also stock up on some of the common blades, all right, that we see a lot in the shop. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times, depending upon my customer, if I know they're in sandy loam soil, when I order them a set of blades, I order a secondary set put on the shelf. Because I know that if they're in that type of soil, it's going to chew through those blades quickly. And I'm going to get that call. But I can tell you, like yesterday, we had a zero turn, a friend of mine, and he had us work on it last year, and he said it was driving him crazy that on your zero turn, your handles, if you get them out of whack, you're not getting the same amount of pressure going frontwards and backwards. The other thing that takes place is you do have a breakdown. After so many hours used, that unit is going to get slower. It's going to require more. And over a couple of years, you'll start noticing it. Even if you keep all your fluid levels good, everything good, it's still going to wear, no matter how well you take care of it. And every once in a while, depending upon how you mow your yard, if you're using one drive motor more than you are the other, it's going to weaken that motor. And there's a couple things you can do to adjust the handles with the front bolts, on the cubbies, to try to get the handles more in line so that they're pushing it the same and pulling it the same. But you're pretty limited on what you can do to the actual pump unless you get into the commercial grade of where you can increase or decrease the pressures. On your standard homeowners, not so much. But this zero turn had its own separate drive on each side. And the guy had told me, the friend of mine told me, he said, if it needs a new drive motor, go ahead and put it on. Well, the thing is it's right around $700 plus labor to tear it apart and put it back together. So I said, you're looking at almost $1,000. And I said, I can tell you right now, if I replace that one with a brand new one, you're going to be calling me next week saying the other one's slower because the other one's got wear. So I said the only way to really do it right is to replace both of them at the same time. So now you're looking at a couple grand. And he's like, well, I didn't pay only $4,000 for it brand new. My suggestion is to drive it till it don't drive no more, or pedal it and go buy a brand new one. Because to put $2,000 into that machine, being, I think he told me it was 4 or 5 years old, starts crossing that line of, I'm over halfway for a brand new one. What else is wearing on that? That I'm going to have to replace next. The engine's got so many hours on it. The deck has got so many hours on it. The list can go on. And that's no matter how well you keep things, it's still going to wear. And I'll be honest with you, today's machines aren't what they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago. They're cheap. What more can I say? You have to have a good flow through the shop, and that means getting something tore down, getting the parts ordered, and getting to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. If you're doing service work and you've done your homework, most of the stuff should be in and out. The only thing that might be a clincher would be if you needed a certain belt or a certain blade that you don't have in stock and you have to order it. And I can tell you right now, if you're doing the eBay Amazon thing, you're looking at now weeks out. And I've resorted to go back to the aftermarket and the OEM companies because I know they're sitting on a ton of it, and I can have it here usually the next day. And my customer isn't thinking that we're dissing them by not getting their machine in now. So having this stuff on hand is a plus because you get paid quicker, right? You can get something in, get something out, and get a hold of the customer and tell them it's ready to be picked up, or drop it off if you're the one doing the pickup and drop off on it. But there's a certain flow that you have to have, and you have to develop what works best for you, And it could be simply, I have a little notebook that I keep track of my customers. It's terrible, huh? Ever since after the surgery and stuff, is in this notebook I have a name, and underneath the name I have the machine and the model number and the spec, whether it be serial number, this or that. So I don't need to run out and look at what machine is it. I can just look at my little book. So if Claude tells me it needs a drive belt or it needs a set of blades, this or that, I'm punching it in, bringing it up, see what it is, and checking the shelf to see if I have it on the shelf. If not, I put it on order. And I've given my customers the option a few times. And the option is you can wait until I get a good enough order so that I can split the shipping amongst numerous items, or you can pay to have it shipped here, and you're looking at right around $15-20 on top of what your part costs. And I'll tell you, most of my customers are willing to pay that shipping. You get on eBay and Amazon and rave about free shipping. There is no free shipping. The Chinese are just pushing and peddling all the crap that they can't sell anywhere else. And usually, from what I understand, a lot of it is defective stuff that didn't meet the quality assurance, quality control or whatever from like these OEM and aftermarket companies and got rejected. And they're peddling it through the other sources to get rid of it versus melting it down and starting again. I don't know if that is true or not, but I do know that it's a crapshoot when it comes to the Chinese now. Is it the right carburetor and will it fit? And before you go putting it on whatever you have, compare the carburetors that you have. This is the old one. This is the new one. Are the linkages on the same side? Are everything the same? If it's not the same, it's not the same. And you're not going to get it to run right. But you have to have that flow. And you have to have a routine that works for you. It may look like chaos from the outside, but as long as it works for you, that's the goal. What works for me does not necessarily mean it's going to work for you, right? I mean, my system is we bring one unit in and we get it tore down. We figure out what we need. I have the model number. I go in. I run the model number, bring up the parts diagrams, and order the parts that we need. Or I'll put it on order for that day. And at the end of the day, I'll put the order in because I want the parts there the following night so that we can get stuff in and out of the shop. And then jump to the next, and the next, and the next. And that's one of the reasons we had to develop certain things, in like putting the dipstick on top of the flywheel, on top of the engine, so that if either one of us spotted that when we were approaching a machine, we would automatically know there's no oil in it. That's a given for Claude or I. If that dipstick is out and it's sitting on top, there's no oil in it, do not start it. Put the drain plug in it, add the oil filter, and crank it up, shut it back down, check, make sure that when it sucked into the oil filter that it didn't drop down to the add mark again, and don't overfill with oil. I've seen that before too. People would tell me, well, if I put extra in there, it's even better. No, it's not. No. And that could lead to catastrophic failure. It's like my Mini the other day. Claude said it was down considerably on hydraulic fluid. So he took 5 gallons and put 5 gallons in it, which I thought seemed odd because there's no leaks on it. And he said he needed another 5 gallons. How the hell did that tank get that low? Because he and my son run it. So he started adding the second 5-gallon thing, and he got about 3/4 of the way, and it come right to the top. The eyeglass wasn't showing that it had any in it, but it had come to the top. And I mentioned to Claude, I said, we need to take that fluid down. You can't leave it there. And he's like, why? I said, because it could cause damage elsewhere. And he said, nah. So I tried Google with AI. What happens if you overfill the hydraulic system on a mini excavator? And basically catastrophic events of pumps, drive motors, seals, O-rings, you name it. It's got to go somewhere when it needs to breathe and it warms up. There's got to be a place for that fluid to expand. And if it doesn't, it's going to be expanding somewhere. I don't want it to and have it cost me money. So having too much is just as bad as not enough. Randy, following up with you, well, what happens if a customer wants a complete engine rebuild? Rebuild it. I would. Most of my customers aren't looking for that. But we can order a brand new Briggs, Kohler, short block, and then reuse the rest of it if it's in good shape. Some just freshen things where they'll put a new set of rings and then gaskets and call it good enough. But if you're that far, why not replace the connecting rod right with it and the piston? You're going to have wear on all that, and if you're freshening it up, what better way, right? Because we always gave a guarantee on the engines for so many hours. And it wasn't required by the manufacturer or this or that. It was, if it came in and we did a complete engine rebuild, we added the oil, so we made sure it was full. And we cut the customer loose. We knew the customer, even if he didn't check the oil, it should stay and do well for the season. Because it's all brand new. It's been rebuilt from the ground up. Can you newer mechanics rebuild a complete engine? I don't know. It depends on the mechanics in the shop. I would think not, because customers have gone away from rebuilds in the last 15, 20 years. We haven't done one. We didn't do a one last year. No one wanted a new rebuilt engine because they'd go to Harbor Freight and buy a brand new one with a warranty for what we were going to charge just in parts. Just in parts. That's not the labor. That's just parts. So on that note, you guys have a great Wednesday, and we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning for the weekday. You guys have a great day. Put in the comments if you have any other questions or comments, how you do your flow, so that everything seems to click, per se.